Welcome back to Inside Medical Malpractice. We are lucky enough to be here with Brian Devlin, a very experienced plaintiff's lawyer from Law 51 in Calgary. If you haven't heard it yet, have a listen to Brian's longer podcast where he discusses his varied career, shares some of the experiences of his malpractice and other areas of law that he's worked in. He talks about what works, what doesn't work, and what he'd like us all to know about medical malpractice. It's a fascinating podcast, and you don't want to miss it. But what we're going to talk about now is Brian himself, Brian the guy, and what makes him tick. So welcome back, Brian. Happy to have you.
Thank you.
Let's just dive into some of these questions because you're a great guest in the respect that I ask you a question and you've got lots to say and great answers. So let's talk first of all. I know in the other podcast, you busted my chops a bit for talking about and you being an older lawyer, but you did mention that you're 70-ish and getting close to retirement or thinking about it, close-ish to retirement. What does the next chapter of your life look like for you?
Well, it looked a lot different before COVID came along. But I really hadn't planned on completely retiring. Not right away anyway. So the next few years, I probably still stick around and as counsel with Law 51, which is a firm I mentioned before with Steve Breslauer and Derek Nash. And, I'm still taking on cases, but with the idea that if I retire, that Steve would carry on to finish them off. The problem with these medical cases, it would take forever, some of them, and especially a more serious case is going to take, 4 or 5 years, and an injured infant case, birth injury. Some of those cases I've had them take a very long time. So, so I'm not going to be around to finish them. And so I tell people that, but hopefully anyway, I can do a bit more and help Steve to get a better idea of what to do.
So when this winds down, though, the legal practice, or as it winds down, what are you going to do with yourself?
Well, I got a lot of hobbies. I got a lot of hobbies. So my original, just to give you an idea, when I was going to retire in end of February before COVID hit, I had a trip planned to Machu Picchu. I had a trip to Nashville. I had a trip to Europe. We had a lot of things going on, and we had to cancel. I also had my 70th birthday party, which I hired a band for. I had the whole, the hall, everything, and all that stuff had to be canceled. So that was a real drag. But anyway, hopefully by next June, I'll just forget my 70th and just to do a 70 redux and just do the 70th birthday party then, and get a band and whatever.
So you're going to travel and you're going to have a big party to celebrate your 70th 2.0 birthday.
Yeah, I've done a lot. My wife and I have done a lot of traveling already, fortunately. So, we've been all over the world. So, it's not like, like a lot of people seem to wait, they want to wait till I retire and then I'll go traveling. That's not really the case we've done a lot of traveling. But I still have a few places I wouldn't mind going to or going back to. But, I have a cottage up at Sylvan Lake, so I spent a lot of time up there, and I just finished building a new studio up there. So my wife's a painter, and so she has she's going to have her painting studio in there, and I've got a bunch of my music stuff in there. And so it's a great place to hang out. And like I say, I have lots of hobbies. So I don't think I'll have any problem filling in my time, what time I have left.
Yeah. Hopefully it's a long time.
All the time I have left.
And your wife is a painter. She's a gorgeous painter. Let's give a shout out to Pat Devlin right here. She's got some beautiful artwork and she shows 2 or 3 times a year. And I have one of her paintings hanging on my living room wall right now, which I absolutely love. And so you've mentioned music a few times. Before you went into law or university, you were in a band, and I happen to know you're still in a band. And I've heard you play many times, and music is a big part of your life. Talk to us a little bit about that part of your life, what it brings you, what your plans are for it, which are currently, I know COVID makes it tough to play or perform anywhere.
Well, I started sort of getting involved in music when I was just a kid, and I was a singer with a band called Hourglass which only lasted for a short time back in Ontario. We used to do things like I don't know, we were doing monkeys music and stuff like that. And anyway, lots of fun stuff, but it didn't last very long. Anyway, then I went off to university, and I actually went to work in a lumber camp, and there was a guy there who played guitar. He played the acoustic guitar, and he wasn't very good, but he knew like 3 or 4 chords. Anyway, so I went into Huntsville, hitchhiked into Huntsville one day, and they had a guitar sitting in the Singer sewing machine store, the Singer store.
Of course they did. Of course they did.
Of course. Why not? And so anyway, so I went in there and I said, well, those guitars, And he says, they're $125. I said, oh my God, I can't afford anything like that. $125. So he said, you know what? I got one in the back that somebody poked a hole in the size of a quarter in the side of it, I'll sell it to you for $20. So I said, oh, fantastic. So I bought that. It was a Valdez guitar, and I put a STP sticker over the hole, and away we went, And then I went back to the lumber camp, and this guy taught me how to play "Oh Donna." You know that song? "Oh Donna."
I do know that song. Yeah.
Anyway, then I sort of started playing acoustic guitar, and then when I was at university, I played a bunch in cafe, my Bob Dylan stuff and things like that. With a few guys, and we play like a couple times a week. And then when I went to law school, I was obsessed with that guitar. I loved that guitar, or a guitar of any kind. But when I went to law school, I decided, if I have a guitar at law school, I'm not going to study, because I'll come home and I'll sit around and play the guitar, and I won't. So I sold the guitar, and I didn't have a guitar for all the way through law school, and even when I was articling. And then I actually went down to a pawn shop in Calgary and bought an electric guitar for the first time. A Gretsch electric guitar for about $100. And I started playing electric guitar. And so that went on quite a while. And then anyways, I started getting together with these guys to play, jam. And eventually we started this band called Iron... what was it called? Iron
Zipper.
Zipper. Yeah, Iron Zipper. Right. I don't even remember the name of it. Iron Zipper. How could you ever forget that? Anyway, so we started the band in 1998, and the band is no longer, it's kind of disbanded now as of about 2018. So it was almost 20 years. And I have that original guitar that I had. I bought it back. This old acoustic guitar. It's a Harmony acoustic. And I had all the guys sign it, and it's hanging down in my basement, right? So,
nice.
So we had the Iron Zipper band for 20 years, and we mostly played at weddings and community halls and things like that. And it was a lot of fun.
What does your guitar collection look like now? I'm assuming it's more than a $20 guitar with a hole on the side covered by an STP sticker.
I've got quite a few guitars, and I probably got about 15 guitars. And the main one I play is a white Stratocaster guitar that I bought in New York. But I've got a whole bunch of them. I got Telecasters and Les Pauls and PRSs, and I got a lot of guitars hanging on the wall. And I just but there's certain ones, you sort of go to that you feel better playing. So my favorites kind of change sometimes, but basically that white Strat, that's my go-to guitar.
It's funny how you guitarists have a go-to. I mean, as you know, my husband, Rick, who you have played with many times, has this red guitar. I couldn't tell you what kind it is, but it goes to bed with him every night, / goes to bed with us every night.
He told me that. I had a hard time believing that he would go to bed with a guitar.
No, I'm telling you, Brian, this is a true story. Yeah. This is a true story. And I've had to sleep on his right side in the bed for 40 years because the neck sticks out on the left side when he plays the guitar. And that is a true story. And that's his favorite guitar. And sometimes when we travel and he can't take that with him, he's like, he mourns. He misses his red guitar.
What about when he's away from you? Does he miss you?
He better miss me. I mean, I hope so. But
your husband is a great guitar player, and I've seen that guitar many times. So,
yeah.
But my wife would not allow me to bring my guitar to bed. Not that I'd ever want to, but I think she'd draw the line there.
I've never even tried to draw the line, and I don't know that after this many years of marriage, I could draw the line. There'd be a battle royale to deal with. But anyway,
better leave him alone. Let him do his thing.
Yeah, you guys just stick together on this stuff. So, do you have plans to continue with your music or increase the time you spend on music as you step away from your professional practice?
Yeah, definitely. That's kind of I have this new. I was just mentioning I have this new studio building. It's just a one room sort of building, but I used to have. There was an old building there, which is kind of fallen apart and full of bats and everything. All the bats sort of love the place. And I got sick of the bats hanging around, so we actually rebuilt it. So now it's not much nicer, And I've got a drum set and a piano and guitars and everything there. So what I'm hoping to do is to record some music and play some music like your son does. But it's something to occupy yourself, So
definitely.
I'm always playing. I play a couple hours a day. So, I mean, it's not like I would ever give up playing unless something happens to my hands or something.
Yeah. Even then you can adjust and find other ways to make music.
Yeah. Lately I've been playing a lot of piano. I'm trying to learn to play the piano a little better. So I've been playing a fair bit of piano lately.
That's good. And I hear it's good for your brain, your neuroplasticity and all that, to learn new skills, and especially musical instrument and a language. So good on you. That'll keep you young for a long time.
Certainly use that.
Yeah, right. We all can. We can all use that. So a little bit more about your family. I mean, we've mentioned Pat, who's a beautiful artist, and you've got two sons, neither of which are lawyers.
Sam, who's my younger son, he works for Scotiabank. He's like an investment sort of research analyst type of guy. He's heavily into the investment banking, and he works like a dog. He works like 15 hours a day. I don't know how he does it, but anyway. But he's doing really well. And my other son, Luke, who's the older one, he is out in Vancouver. He's a writer with an advertising agency, and he got his English degree and, got a job with his advertising agency, and he's been in that business ever since. So yeah, he's doing well too, and he likes living in Vancouver.
Yeah, good. And you started with an English degree, right? So that's a little like father, like son. And Pat was a writer, a professional technical writer for some time, wasn't she?
Well, she was a journalist. She went to Ryerson and she's a qualified journalist. And then she worked for newspapers that's where I met her, a number of years, covering the criminal courts. That's when I met her, when I was I was defending the Southwest rapist when I got a date with her. So think about that. Think about that persuasive ability to get a date.
Yeah,
Great,
that's right.
With me,
So neither of your sons went into law, although it sounds like they followed it, sort of a natural path of their parents. But was that by design? Did you encourage them to go or not go into law based on your experience?
I didn't encourage them one way or the other. I always thought at least one of them would probably be a lawyer. Why not? But neither of them, I don't know whether it's watching me over the years or they just thought, oh God, who needs this? Or whether they just weren't that interested. Luke actually wrote the LSAT, but then he decided not to go. So he didn't want. He's a very, he wouldn't be good in a sort of structured adversarial sort of environment. I don't think he's kind of a much looser, chilled sort of guy, he fits right in with that advertising group. And Sam, I don't know where Sam got his math abilities. It certainly wasn't from me, but he's a math whiz. And, when I asked him to show me, even when he was in school, I'd ask him, oh, what are you doing? Show me some of your stuff. And he'd show me these great algorithms and things. Jesus, I couldn't understand any of it. So I said, oh, that looks interesting. So.
Well, it sounds like they followed a path that they were meant to follow then, and so, found their own way. It's interesting how kids, if you let them just be a wiggly fish and find out where they're going, they'll eventually land up.
Nothing worse than trying to force your kid into something they don't like or won't like. But they did pick up the guitar, so they're both good guitar players. So I'm happy with that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. Yeah. It bodes well for the future of your band, perhaps.
Yeah.
So what about you? If you had become a lawyer, what career path would you have chosen?
Good question. A very interesting thing happened. I was taking my English degree. I was about 2 years in, and I had a good friend I used to play guitar with back in Hanover, which is my hometown in Ontario, named Peanuts Crawford. His real name is Al, but anyway, everybody calls him Peanuts. Anyway, Peanuts Crawford and we were sort of learning guitar together and stuff. And he phoned me in second year university and said, you know what? I've decided that I am going to quit school and I'm going to be a musician, a professional musician. And, that's what I'm going to do. And do you want to join me? And we'll have a duo and we'll do this and we'll travel around and we'll, who knows what. Who knows? Maybe we'll be the next Simon and Garfunkel or something, And so I thought hard about that. I really did. And then I thought, I spent all this time and effort in university. I'm not going to quit in the middle of this just to go play guitar with Peanuts Crawford, So anyway, he did it. And I went back to my hometown recently and he was there. I saw him. And he's playing still around these small towns, and he's had a great life. I mean, he hasn't made a lot of money or anything. And he's not a recording artist or anything, but he's had like a little band, and he's had a great lifestyle, no stress, going around playing music for the last 40 years. And he's in, great spirits, and it's good to see.
Well, that's good. In hindsight, good decision or bad decision not to join Peanuts Crawford?
I think it was probably a good decision overall. I mean, I think I got a lot more satisfaction out of being a lawyer than I would have playing some folk song for the next 40 years. I mean, we're talking about places like Elmwood and Newstead and Hanover and all these little towns in Ontario where and in fact, I talked to one of the guys when I was back home. I went back, they had a hippie reunion in Hanover. So this a couple of years ago, and this friend of mine, John Gardner, who played in a band that I was in for a very short time, he invited me to come back for the Hanover hippie reunion, which takes place every year. So I went back and went down to the park, and they had a thing set up and you could play music and everything. So anyway, John Gardner was still playing with a band too, but he became a newspaper reporter or something. But anyway, so I was saying, so you're still playing the band, And he said, yeah. And he says, you know what? We get paid less now than we did when we were in high school.
Oh, man.
$200 a night for the whole band, So it's a tough gig, it's a tough, if you don't have something else, I mean, it's a tough way to make a living. And, some people are successful and can become, quite well known and so on, but it's a tough grind. And unless you can write songs of your own that are successful, you're going to be doing cover tunes of the band for the rest of your life.
Yeah, I think it is a tough gig, and you just better love what you're doing if you're going to go into it. So
that's what Peanuts is like.
Bless everybody who does, because I mean, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't love seeing a live band and really enjoy live music. But
yeah, that's the biggest problem with COVID is how it's canceled everything. There's not even, guys playing acoustic guitars anymore, and nothing going on really, very little anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. And if we had Steve, my son, who's also producing this podcast, in on this, he could talk for half an hour about how his career has been temporarily decimated, both to play and to produce music. And he's had to pivot in 1,000 ways to just, stay afloat. So anyway, bless all of them and you who play music and are sticking with it. And I think, people like Brian and I for sure will be glad to see it all come back and support live music again once it gets going. But that's its own topic and a different one. But let me ask you a couple of questions just about yourself. I mean, you're just, just have such a wealth of knowledge in both life. I mean, your life journey has been what it's been, and your career journey has been varied, and you just gained so much experience. What advice would you give yourself right now if you could go back and talk to your younger self?
That's a real I tell myself not to get in trouble when I was a teenager. I tell myself not to get married the first time. I mean, everybody goes through difficulties in their life, but as far as what I did and the way it ended up, I don't think I'd change anything.
That is very refreshing to hear.
I had more fun with it. Noel O'Brien and Don McLeod. We had more laughs doing this stuff. It's a lot of black humor, but aside from practicing law, it's been a pleasure. It's been a real pleasure. I really enjoyed everything I've done. And there've been some tough times where you're laying in bed at night and can't sleep, and you're thinking about what's going to happen, and with these cases and everything. It's a very stressful occupation. But having said that, we had a lot of good times, a lot of laughs. I wouldn't do anything differently.
That's really interesting. That's a great thing to hear. So is the secret to that what? How do you get to this stage in your life and not wish that you'd done anything differently?
I think the secret is just doing something that you love doing. And I've always, loved practicing law. Like I started out articling with a big firm, and quickly realized that I wasn't, that wasn't my sort of thing. I mean, I wasn't going to fit in there that well. I didn't like people having authority over me. I've always been kind of anti-authoritarian, so I thought I would be better off just out on my own with another guy or something, rather than doing the big firm deal. So, I probably would have made more money in a big firm, maybe. I don't know. But I wouldn't have had as much fun, I don't think.
Well, you did maintain, even in the firm that you were in, your malpractice practice was a solo practice, really, wasn't it? Because it's not like the three of you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty much. Although, like I said before, those guys were both very good trial lawyers. Like, they're criminal lawyers, but they're excellent trial lawyers. And so, you could you could bounce things off them, even though you're dealing with a malpractice case. It's different. But, you're still doing a trial. You're cross-examining people. You're thinking of strategies and so on. So, but yeah, I pretty much was on my own in terms of doing those cases, because they didn't really do that type of work at all.
So here's a question for you. What do people most often get wrong about you besides your soft heart?
Well, most people, I think, generally, they probably see me and they think, oh, here's this guy who's a lawyer, who's been practicing 40 years. He's probably from some family that, his dad's probably a lawyer or a judge or something. My dad worked in a cleaners and was a jail guard. I have three sisters. We all lived in about a 700 square foot apartment above the cleaners, which was part of his job. I lived there until I was 15. So I think a lot of people sort of see an older sort of lawyer who's had some success or whatever, and they think, oh, well, this guy, he's obviously from that kind of background with, a family history. That's not the case with me at all. Just the opposite. So that's probably the thing I would think people might assume that's not correct. So
you came from humble beginnings and worked your way right through this.
Very, very humble beginnings.
That's good to know. Okay, that's good to know. Who at this point in your life is your hero?
Well, that sort of depends. I mean, as far as lawyers go, I've always been very respectful of Jack Major, who was my principal and went on. He was a great lawyer when he was a lawyer, and a great judge. And as far as lawyers go, he's certainly one of them. Al Hunter was before he passed away. What's his name? I'm thinking of the lawyer down in the States. His name escapes me at the moment. He was a big personal injury, very well-known personal injury lawyer from Wyoming. So those kind of guys are kind of, look up to them. Some of the judges on the court I've certainly looked up to, like the previous Chief Justice was a sort of a mentor to me. And as far as
like Beverly McLaughlin, is that who you're talking about? The previous Chief Justice?
No, of Alberta.
Oh, of Alberta. Yes. Okay. Mm-hmm.
And other than that, I'm kind of a more inclined to respect writers and musicians than I don't respect politicians at all, period. End of story. But I respect writers and musicians and that type of person more than I would, the premier of Alberta or something.
And why is that? Why do you respect, that's perfectly valid and respectful. But why do you respect writers and musicians more than politicians?
Well, I guess it's because my interests are more in that line, and I admire the creativity of people who can write a good book or a great musician, And, I have friends who are doctors too. And, people also get the impression, I think, that doctors are not acting in their interests all the time. And, to be honest, most of the doctors that I've met doing this work are pretty decent guys. There's a few that I would not say that about, but most of the guys that I've met, had their heart in the right place. They just made a mistake, right?
Yeah.
And most of the experts that I've used over the years, there's only been a few that I would say this about were really decent, caring doctors who were in it for the right reason. They weren't in it to make money necessarily or to be a big success. They were in it to take care of the patients. And boy, does it ever come through when you meet those guys. It really comes through. And when you meet the other kind of doctors who are arrogant and in it for the bread or the prestige or whatever, it's so evident. So I admire those guys that are devoted,
Yeah, there's no doubt it's a noble profession at its finest, without a doubt, medicine and healthcare. Not just speaking because I'm a nurse for 40 years, but I've worked with a lot of great doctors too. And you're just like,
nurses are all great.
Thank you. I didn't pay you to say that, did I? Do I have to get any money for that? I can't remember. So one last question before we wrap this up, is there anything else you want us to know about yourself? Because my question is, what is your superpower? And I'm interested to hear the answer to that. But is there anything else you want us to know about you?
I guess the only thing I'm kind of I'm not a risk adverse person. So when it came to my practice I ride motorcycles, I've had lots of motorcycle accidents, I've had other injuries and stuff. I've downhill skied for years, and I've never been a risk adverse person, and probably too much the other way, according to my wife anyway. But I think that had a great deal to do with my practice, because basically, I raised my kids and everything I've done has been on contingency. If you don't win, you don't get paid, right? So, that's a very risky way to make a living. It really is. It's almost like gambling in a way, except you have more control. You can go to Vegas and put your money on a slot machine, but with the law, you have more control. You know what you're doing. You know how strong the case is, but it's still, it's still a contingency. And if you don't win, you got a family to support and everything else. So it can be stressful. But it's always kind of been my personality. So a lot of guys don't like that. They like having a salary. Go to work every day, get a pension, get a salary. You sure got health coverage, you got all this stuff. We never had that. We never had at our firm. We never had health coverage or pensions or any of that nonsense. You worked hard and luckily things worked out. Didn't always work out. I can't say that. I've certainly lost my share of cases, but generally speaking, I'm perfectly happy with the way it worked out.
Oh, that's great. What's the reward been for you of not having that secure job and working in a firm with all those benefits and that security? What's the reward been of your risk taking?
Oh, well, freedom, independence and freedom to do whatever you want. You're your own boss. And if you screw something, that's the other thing about doing all this basically on my own. If I screwed something up, I'd had no one to blame. You know what I mean? It's all me. So if I lost something or made a mistake or whatever, it's all on me. So I don't have anybody to blame. I don't have any concerns about anybody else not doing their job or something. that's the benefit, the freedom, the independence. There's nobody telling you what to do. There's no boss. I had 100 bosses because I had 100 clients. So they're all my boss, but it's not the same as having a senior partner in some firm telling you, okay, Devlin, you're going to Fort McMurray to do a 4-month discovery or something. It wasn't for me. It wasn't for me to have somebody tell me what I was supposed to do and not do. And,
yeah, I'm sure.
And I can say that Noel, my partner, O'Brien, and Don McLeod were basically the same way. And so we had a good time. We had a lot of laughs and we had a lot of success. No regrets.
That's really good. Sounds like a little band of outlaws right there. And
it was almost like a rock band, except it was a law firm. The same kind of idea.
That's really good. Well, and knowing you like I know you I don't know you really well, but I've known you for a long time. I wouldn't even want to try to be your boss. No, thanks.
My wife does a good job of it.
Yeah, if she can keep your guitar out of your bed, I think that's pretty impressive, And don't take this anything twisted. It's not like anything weird goes on with the guitar in the bed. It's just that it's just what happens, and it's always happened. It's how he winds down. He often goes to sleep with a guitar in his hands, and he'll hit some weird strum as he falls asleep, and I have to get out of bed and turn off the light and unclasp his hands and take the guitar out of his hands and put it away.
That is one of the most bizarre things I've ever heard. Even Jimi Hendrix, I don't think, slept with his guitar when he had a girlfriend in bed with him,
Oh, well, it is what it is. It doesn't seem bizarre at all. It's just how it's always been. The guy loves his guitar. What can I say? So, and I know he loves me too. So anyway, last question. Just thanks again for this chat that we've had for this. But what is your superpower? That's the question.
Oh, you asked me that already.
Oh, well, what is it then? You're just being on your own?
I said my superpower was, I think, not being risk adverse, that I was willing to take chances.
Okay. I thought that was just the last thing you wanted to tell us, not that it was your superpower. So apologies. Thanks for that. It's a good superpower to have.
Yeah, I don't know if it's really a superpower, but I know that, the way I sort of pursued things that had a lot to do with it.
Well, like a lot of research that's been done at end of life research, when they ask people the things that they most regret at the end of their life, it's been being risk averse. It's been not following their dreams and not living their life the way that they wanted to. So I think it's probably a great superpower for you to have.
Yeah, I've always had a native sort of curiosity too. Like to do this medical stuff, you have to be curious about the medicine and I always found it fascinating. Like the best part of the case was always when it first came in and trying to put the puzzle together. That's the most interesting part, which I guess that's something that I found very interesting. And if you hadn't found that interesting, then I don't think you ever would do it, because it's just so much work to sort of get yourself to the point where you understand that stuff without going to, you don't go to med school. So what happens, you become an expert in certain little areas, like gallbladders or cauda equina, back problems, but you're not an expert. You're not an expert in medicine at all. And so, I rely on my experts to tell me about the medicine. But when I go to court, I rely on my skill as a lawyer, because the doctors who are involved are not lawyers, and their weakness is when you're cross-examining them as a lawyer. That's something they're not used to. You can argue the medicine with them till you're blue in the face, and they will always probably come out on top, because some of them are specialists. They've been studying this stuff for 15 years. You're not going to win based on arguing the medicine with them. You leave that to the experts. But the simple cross-examination is usually what tells the tale at the actual trial.
It's a tough thing being cross-examined because I've been to court a few times. And have you ever been cross-examined? You ever been to court as an expert?
Yeah, I have not as an expert, but I've been cross-examined on affidavits and things. But it's not pleasant.
No, it's not. That's a gentle way to say it. It's not pleasant at all. Mm-hmm. And I think medicine is an adversarial like law too, right? There's a little bit of power struggle that goes on in, whatever pecking order, but not in the same sense. I don't think any of us have the skill that you lawyers have at just getting to it.
Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, as a lawyer, you have to use your strength. Your strength is not the knowledge of medicine. You might know a bit about it, but your strength is being a trial lawyer. So you have to apply those skills to get the result you want to get. And a lot of times I've found that in some of these complex trials, it's the simple cross-examination of the defendant who then admits certain things that destroy his defense that are more important sometimes than the experts.
Well, and there you have it. Though one of the reasons why Brian Devlin is somewhat feared as a lawyer, you don't want to go up against him in court. But anyway, I just, we could talk all day and all night, I'm sure. I just want to say thanks again, Brian. It's been really insightful. I so appreciate you sharing your knowledge and your stories and your experiences. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, that's great. Well, thanks for inviting me, and I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. If you haven't heard it yet, don't miss the longer podcast by Brian Devlin to learn more about his incredible wealth of experience and knowledge, some of the most memorable cases he's worked on, and where he offers some advice to lawyers and healthcare professionals and the public about malpractice, and talks about some changes he'd like to see in malpractice law. So don't miss it. And thank you very much.